Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The New England Patriots are clearly rebuilding, but is the plan already in question? Also, will the Bucs repeat as NFC South champs? They're not the favorites. And nobody does heartbreak like the Minnesota Vikings. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The New England Patriots are apparently embracing the rebuild. After trading Matthew Judon, we got our first extended look at Drake May. There were a couple nice passes. I got a push alert on one of the passes, so that must mean something, right? Drake May also ran in a touchdown in this game. The final result doesn't matter. They lost to the Eagles. That part is not relevant. What relevant is we have our friend Mike Debate from Locked On Patriots who joins us now. And Mike, this is our first, as I said, extended look at Drake May. What did you think?
I was impressed by what I saw from the rookie tonight. I thought he looked calm. Control of the offense, things that we've seen seedlings during the training camp practices and even a little bit during joint practice earlier this week with the Eagles. But the one thing that I noticed about Drake is he's allowing the game to come to him. And I think that's something that is going to allow him to assimilate into this offense sooner, maybe rather than later, maybe a bit sooner than Patriots fans and definitely colleagues of mine and myself in the media thought possible. I was impressed with the way he threw the ball tonight. And then, of course, running the ball in on a zone run, which is a trademark of an Alex Van Pelt offense. It's what you want to see from your young quarterback, and he definitely delivered it tonight.
One thing that has been coming up over and over the last couple of weeks as we look at what's going on in New England is, okay, the offensive line, the skill position players, not exactly what you want if you're going to build the perfect scenario. Like what's happening in Chicago, where you have three bona fide receivers and a quality offensive line, at least we think that's not happening in New England right now. And look, in this game, Javon Baker had a nice catch. Jalen Polk had two catches for 6 yards. This is not exactly what you're looking for if you're trying to build out the perfect scenario for this team long term. What did you think of the young pass catchers for New England?
I think there's promise there, and I think you hit the nail on the head, Peter. We're still in the very early developmental stages of this offense coming together. Look, Jalen Polk has all the elements of being a contested catch weapon when he hones into form and when he really rounds type of player that I believe and a lot of people here in New England believe he can be. He's showing seedlings of that. But again, it's going to take time.
Yeah, they really like him in New England, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And not just because of the prowess that he brings on the field, but also what he brings in the locker room, a leadership ability that I've described several times as being beyond his years. This is a kid that automatically understands the playbook. He's showing guys where they need to be out there. That's very rare for a young receiver, sure. Especially a rookie. And for him to be able to do that says a lot about the type of scouting that the Patriots did for him pre-draft. You heard a lot of that from his Washington teammates, that he was kind of the glue that kept it all together when things were kind of falling apart at the seams. I think his insight is going to be valuable. So they really like him in New England. And Javon Baker is an exciting, electrifying player. But again, the fans need to get work. I think that's basically the best way for me to put it. There were several opportunities for him to break for big plays tonight. They didn't fall that way. Patriots fans need to remember this is preseason. It's good to see he and Drake May on the same page. Just a matter of time before these start to connect. And if they do, then the Patriots are starting to build something in the future.
Christian Barmore, his health status, we don't know what the future of his career is in New England. Matthew Judon, we know his future. It's in Atlanta. And any defensive names that stand out, whether it's in this game or over the last couple of weeks, as you've been observing Patriots training camp, where you go, okay, this is someone who could step up that maybe national fans are not thinking about right now.
Well, Keon White obviously is the guy that everybody's looking to be the next Judon. Yeah. He has that type of pop in his game. He can get after the quarterback. He can actually progress, and I've said several times that I think he can project as a 5-tech player. I've been laughed at a couple of times for saying that, but he has the ability. I'm not saying that's how the Patriots are going to use him. I fully expect them to use him as a 3 because that's exactly where his strengths are. But Keon is someone that does have the ability to be that type of passer edge that can complement someone like a Joshua Uche and help free him up and get him after the quarterback. You saw when you have a competent pass rusher alongside him, what he's capable of in 2022 and 11.5 sacks, setting a career high. That's a name to watch. Anthony Jennings, I think, is going to play a little bit more on the outside. His role will increase as the Patriots start to round into this new look defense, so to speak. And a name that I think people should start to remember is a veteran from the Giants, O'Shawn Jimenez. He came in as an under-the-radar free agent. He's been very good about not only being able to coverage, but also be able to get after the passer. These types of veteran players can really pay dividends. Kind of a throwback to the Bill Belichick days where guys are coming in, not necessarily an extensive they're with them, but they fit into the system. O'Shawn's been very good. I look for him to be a solid player in this system as well. So all those 3 guys, I think, are going to kind of try to do the job that Matthew Judon did. But that's a test to just how good Judon was in this defense.
Stay up to date on the New England Patriots all year by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Patriots on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, can the Bucs repeat in the NFC South? Before we get to that, Ohio State made the decision most thought they would for their starting quarterback. Game Time makes getting to the ballpark even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the free app, and new users can get $20 off their first purchase with code Locked On. Terms apply. That's code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Ryan Day maintained that it was a competition, but most understood that Will Howard, the Kansas State transfer, would get the starting nod for the Buckeyes. It was made official on Thursday.
Ryan Day has named Will Howard the Buckeyes QB1. And we said all offseason, this thing must be earned. You must prove it. You must show Ryan Day. You must show your peers. You must show the other coaches that you have earned the right to be the starting quarterback at Ohio State, because it doesn't get much better than being the starting quarterback in Columbus, Ohio. And Will Howard has done just that. Recently, I was thinking about what Will Howard did during practice that impressed his teammates so much. Denzel Burke during Big Ten Media Day said, hey, I still got to see some more things from Will Howard. During fall camp, during his media availability portion of fall camp, he said, oh, I've seen enough. He's been gaming. I'm like, oh, you've seen what you needed to see. You're basically saying he's the guy. Jeremiah Smith recently said, hey, that's my quarterback. No, that was not a direct quote, but my quarterback came out of his mouth. And then you got Ryan Day, you got Chip Kelly, and they have seen what they needed to see. The competition was fierce. It was tight. You even had a true freshman, a very accurate passer in Julian Sand, throw in and mix things up a little bit. The later we got into fall camp, we saw it was a two-headed race between Devin Brown and Will Howard. Will Howard transferred into Ohio State to be the starting quarterback, and I believe this is the right decision.
LA Chargers head coach Jim Harbaugh wants Colin Kaepernick to coach. Speaking to USA Today Sports, Harbaugh said he'd be a tremendous coach if that's the path he chose. Harbaugh also said he reached out to Kaepernick shortly after he took over the Chargers in January about joining him in Los Angeles in a non-playing capacity. He's considering it, Harbaugh said. He was out of the country. He said he was going to get back to me. We haven't reconnected since then. That was early in the year. The 36-year-old Kaepernick played for Harbaugh when he coached the San Francisco 49ers from 2011 to 2014. Kaepernick has been out of the league since 2016, but recently restated his desire to resume his playing career. Over on the diamond, the LA Dodgers and Milwaukee Brewers wrapped up a crucial series in the National League playoff picture.
Well, the Dodgers fought their way back in this one, down 3-0 early after Jack Flaherty gave up 3 in the bottom of the first. The Dodgers answered back in the top of the second with 2 and 1 more in the third to tie the game. Then they rolled on, tied for a couple of innings. The Dodgers grabbed the lead in the 6th, and then the bullpen kind of fell apart. Daniel Hudson came in and was just flat out not good. So we put this one on Daniel Hudson, not really on Flaherty. And the fact that the rest of the bullpen did an okay job today. Really good, as a matter of fact. Kopech, 1 inning, 1 strikeout, the rest zeros, 15 pitches. Vesia got out of a nice jam, which we'll get into. Zeros across the board.
Somehow it seemed like everyone forgot that not only did the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win the NFC South last year, they won a playoff game. They beat the brakes off the Philadelphia Eagles and went strike for strike with the Detroit Lions, a team everyone seems to think is a potential Super Bowl candidate this year. And yet, as we stand here today, our friends at FanDuel have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers odds to win the NFC South. Odds to win the NFC South at plus 340. James Yarko from Locked On Bucs joins me now. And James, why are the Bucs getting slept on right now?
I mean, it's rinse and repeat from last year. If you go back to this time last year, it was all about the Saints. Everybody was in love with the Saints, and the Bucs just kind of kept trudging on ahead. And the
Bucs were expected to be one of the worst teams in the league last year.
Oh yeah, they were towards the top of the odds for the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. So they just continue to do what they do. Now I will say, over the course of essentially the last 24 hours, that line has moved. It was at plus 310 around noon on Wednesday, and then all of a sudden the Falcons trade for Matthew Judon. They signed Justin Simmons. They are loading up. So I'm starting to see a little bit more why people would favor the Falcons, but a lot of the immediate reaction to essentially just the signing of Kirk Cousins plus the change in coaching staff, I was like, let's take it back a notch, because the Bucs are running it back. They made some great moves in the draft. Baker is comfortable. They get an offensive coordinator that took the job because of his past work with Baker. So this is still a really talented football team, but I think it's just kind of the sugar high of the excitement around the Atlanta Falcons from a national perspective.
Yeah, make the case for why they're going to take a step forward, because I think a lot of us saw, they only quote unquote went 9-8. That was exceeding expectations, as I mentioned. But so make the case why they can be better this year, because I think the idea is, in order to pass the Falcons, in order to win this division, they are going to have to be better this year than they were last year. Why do you think that could be true?
I think you have to start in the trenches, right? That's where football is won and lost. The upgrade immediately at the middle of the offensive line with Graham Barton is going to play a huge role.
Who looked great in his first preseason game.
Oh, fantastic. So that's going to help the league's worst run game from last year. But then mentioning that league's worst run game, Rachaad White still almost ran for 1,000 yards. The problem was it was only him. Now you bring in Bucky Irving. He looks absolutely electric. But I think the biggest difference between last year and this year is going to be the offensive play calling. And I'm not throwing any shade at Dave Canales. I thought he did a really good job for the most part in his first year as an offensive coordinator. But Liam Cohen, coming from that Sean McVay system, he has proven at both the NFL and the collegiate level that he is a really, really good offensive coordinator. And I would not be surprised if this was a move made with kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Todd has kind of mentioned that he's getting towards the end of his NFL career. This could be your head coach in waiting, but Liam Cohen, not only coming from that McVay system, and we've seen it work there. We saw record numbers for the University of Kentucky last year, but his approach of putting the power into the hands of his playmakers, I think is going to open things up a lot for Baker and his ability. He's one of the best in the NFL at pre-snap reads. He's going to be able to get this team in the best situation. And then another big thing that a lot of people don't talk about is Jalen McMillan being a third-round pick for the Buccaneers. And if he wasn't hurt, he's not falling to where he fell. But now they finally have that number 3 wide receiver. Supposed to be Russell Gage last year. He was out all season long. They didn't have that guy. Now Chris Godwin goes back to the slot, and he's going to play that quote-unquote Cooper Kupp role in this offense. We could be looking at an unbelievable season out of Chris Godwin, who is finally healthy and returning to his kind of natural position there of slot receiver. So I think they are still being slept on for sure. This is a legitimate 10-win team. It could be up to 11, could be 9 again, could be 8. They have a tough schedule, but this is a top to bottom, incredibly talented roster. And I think Liam Cohen and Graham Barton are kind of the 2 keys there that really take this team up to the next level.
Stay up to date on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers all year long by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Bucs on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, you don't know heartbreak unless you're a Minnesota Vikings fan. Heartbreak so widespread, it made it into How I Met Your Mother. Yes, I'm talking about Minnesota Vikings fans. They know a level of pain that few can match, as Locked On NFL scouting host Joe Marino and Kyle Krabs discuss.
With the J.J. McCarthy news, full repair of his meniscus that was announced yesterday, which ends his rookie season before it ever begins. This is the first time a first-round quarterback, at least in the Super Bowl era, I think.
67, yeah.
67, yeah. The first-round quarterback to lose his full rookie season to injury in the Super Bowl era after a really promising debut in the preseason debut that he had with Minnesota. You're obviously bummed out for Minnesota fans. You're bummed out for J.J. McCarthy. But this season still has to happen for Minnesota, and I think that's kind of where we'll focus our conversation from a team-building perspective with the Vikings.
Yeah, I'll say this. The history of heartbreak for the Minnesota Vikings,
it's up there.
I think it's unrivaled in the NFL. Like, they've lost 4 Super Bowls. They've not maximized on special rosters. They've had Teddy Bridgewater. They've had Kirk Cousins last year. They had the Sam Bradford deal. I mean, and that wound up working out, right, with Case Keenum coming in and going to the NFC Championship game. But, like, their history of heartbreak is, I think, unrivaled in the National Football League. Like, the contest is over. The Vikings win.
There are a handful of franchises for whom pain is their normal mode. There are jokes, and, look, I'm from Wisconsin. I grew up a Packers fan. But there are jokes about the Vikings and their ineptitude, their unclutchness, if you will. The joke about, why can't Vikings fans have cereal? Because anytime they get near a bowl, they choke. These are well worn in the Midwest, in NFL circles, because we know what happens with the Minnesota Vikings. They have a great player. He leaves, Randy Moss. They have a great quarterback. He gets hurt. Even in the case of someone like Randall Cunningham, who comes to the Vikings, he comes late in his career, well past his prime. And that team in the NFC Championship game, they need a kick to go to the Super Bowl, and a kicker in Gary Anderson, who had not missed all season long, missed in the only place he couldn't possibly miss. This is the life of a Vikings fan. And shout out to all the fans that have stayed steadfast, that have stayed true through all of this, because being a Vikings fan is pain, in addition to dealing with winter in Minnesota, if that's where you are. I do not relish the injury to J.J. McCarthy. I don't. It sucks. And I feel for Vikings fans. Injuries are always bad, but for a team that finally felt like they were in a place to recapture that feeling of having your franchise quarterback to have it ripped away like this is brutal. Unfortunately for them, they're probably used to it. And finally, the NBA unveiled its 2024-25 schedule Thursday with the Knicks-Celtics rivalry opening the season on October 22nd. The Knicks season ended unceremoniously with a slew of injuries, keeping them from fully competing with the Indiana Pacers as they fell in the Eastern Conference semifinals. Enter Mikal Bridges, who the Knicks traded for this offseason. New York will get a very fast litmus test of their new roster as the season begins, with Boston celebrating their latest championship. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, what can stop the 49ers from getting their third NFC West title in a row? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.